Wilder here. Hey, let me tell you about my guest, Kimberly Dvorak, award-winning National Security Border Security investigative reporter for TV, radio, and the print media. She is the Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy, TV correspondent, CW6 News San Diego, as well as One America News Network. Her website, thekdreport.com. Hey, Kimberly, how are you? How are you?
I'm fine. How about yourself, Chuck?
Pretty good, pretty good. Well, I got to tell you, this first one we're going to talk about totally caught me off guard because I didn't know about this, and this is something else. And I'm telling you, I was in the dark about it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That sounds like Gomer Powell. Yeah. Anyway, we've got secret government documents, suspicious transactions going on. And let me tell you something, listener, viewer, this is some very serious stuff. This is almost unbelievable. This is not fiction, is it?
No, it's not fiction whatsoever. Although, you know, the bankers involved may think that they want this to be fiction, but it's not.
Wow. You say that a huge trove of secret government documents revealed for the first time shows how the giants of Western banking are moving trillions, that's trillions of dollars, in suspicious transitions, which is enriching themselves, their shareholders, are you ready for this? While facilitating the work of terrorists, drug kingpins, all the bad characters.
Yep.
How in the world could this be happening in the USA?
Well, it's not only happening in the United States, it's happening all over Europe and anybody who's a part of the international banking sector here. We've got a blockbuster report, and kudos to BuzzFeed, who kind of did the heavy lifting on a lot of this stuff and getting these documents and getting them released so journalists like myself, we can put these things out there and let the American people know that banks like JP Chase, mainstream banks, they are absolutely funneling trillions of dollars worth of cartels, terrorist organizations. We look at these criminal syndicates, and they cannot do business without moving money. They have got to be able to move that money, and we've found out that they are indeed able to move that money, and they're moving it through very big banks.
Are there numerous banks other than, I think in your article you mentioned Chase, JP Morgan, let's see.
B of A?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, like 5 others.
Yeah, there's B of A. There's
Bank of New York.
Yeah, and the HCBC, that's one of the European banks. And actually on this program, we discussed a while ago a report that they were helping cartels move their money and launder their money. And instead of getting, the white collar, workers, if you will, instead of them getting jail time, nobody got jail time. And the FCC handed down the indictment, and the only thing that happened was they had to pay, like $23 million in fines, which of course goes to the Treasury and to the government coffers, and so that's something that they do to earn a little extra money from the taxpayer. But there's no criminal prosecutions for this, and I think that's kind of the outrage when you see these banks, and they come under fire a lot, especially during the election cycle, where they charge $40 for an overdraft fee, or you transfer the money fee, or you go to a different ATM and they charge you a $5 fee, and all of these fees that these big banks charge you. And then you look at what they're doing and allowing these big businesses, these big corporate banks, to slide by. And the investigators, and there are a few people that have done kind of the work of this, and they're not necessarily wanting their names to be out there just yet because I think they're building an international case. But they've come out and said that nearly every single one of these transactions, whether it's for the terrorists, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, or any of those groups, or the Sinaloa cartel, these banks could have stopped each and every one of these transactions because they have the SARS, and that's the reporting that the suspicious reporting that they have the ability to do. They could stop this flat in its tracks, and they don't do it because that means that they're not going to be able to make the money in fees on the other side once it clears.
You know, let me see if I can find, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, they call that FinCEN for short. And you say that laws that were meant to stop the financial crime have instead allowed it to flourish.
Yeah.
So long as the bank files a notice that it may be facilitating criminal activity, it all but immunizes itself and its executives from criminal prosecution.
Absolutely.
So it's sort of like, well, we know it's going on and we're investigating it, but don't tell anybody. So then it's like, well, yeah, they knew what they were doing, and apparently they were using their own money to try to catch the bad guy. Yeah, I guess.
Well, in the rule that these banks are operating under is the deferred prosecution agreement, and what that means is that you agree to pay for a fine rather than jail time. So therein lies the penalties. Where Wells Fargo got hit by the federal government, they ended up having to pay like $23 million in fees. Well, I would have presumed that they just go to their clients, whether it may be the terrorists or the drug cartels or the mafia or the Russian, crime syndicates, pick your poison in any of this. And they know that they'll be able to recoup that money because they'll continue to, launder the money from these big criminal syndicates that continue to operate and flourish, when we have laws on the books that should be preventing this from happening. So if you take away this agreement and you start sending away some of these, these corporate raiders, I guess I would like to say, because they're absolutely not working in the best interest of the American people. But, if you start putting some of those people in jail for 5 to 10 on each count, then trust me, they will start following the rules a lot more carefully. And if not, that they know that they're going to get punished.
Now, Kimberly, you did say corporate raiders, right?
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Las Vegas Raiders.
No,
right?
no, but oh my God, that's a perfect place for the Raiders, though. Sorry, I know that's funny though.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you, this is very interesting, and I do a lot with Bank of America. I also deal with Chase, both of them on the list.
Yep.
But then they say there's gas stations in America, and some of these cheap gas companies that are out there.
Yeah.
And that they're also sending money to terrorists and things like that. You just never know, do you? And I mean, how in the world would you know if your bank is doing this? Because if you walk in there and ask them, I can imagine the answer you'd get.
Yeah. Well, and just to kind of, I'm going to read the Treasury Department was asked for comment on, the basis that this is continuing to take place. And the Treasury Department, released the statement saying that they were aware of various media outlets' intent to publish a series of articles based on unlawfully disclosed suspicious activity reports, that's the SARS. They continue to say that the unauthorized disclosure of SARS is a crime that can impact national security of the United States, compromise law enforcement investigations, and threaten the safety and security of the institutions and individuals who file such reports. So that's a whole bunch of nothing. And I guess if you're worried about what the drug cartels and the terrorists, what they're thinking about with all this being able to launder the money, then I guess we ought to worry about their concerns, because it's something that we really should support in the end, because they go after and they're able to, launder this money, trillions of dollars, $2 trillion and counting, that the documents that have come forward. That's a lot of money. And you want to know, when they fund the terrorist attacks against the United States or our military bases or embassies overseas, in essence, when you think about it, that money in part is being funded through U.S. taxpayers. I mean, and how awful does that, and to raise a flag and for the Treasury Department to say, oh, it's crime to release those SARS, which none of them have been, they've been put out there heavily redacted, no names. So it's a bogus argument. They always go after national security on these types of, when these types of crimes come to, sunlight gets, put on these things. It's just unbelievable that these banks continue to do this. And, we've talked on this show a number of times about cartels and how they're laundering their money through the banks, through gas stations, through hubcap dealers. There's a variety of cash businesses, car washes, that they all use, and they launder this money, and that the U.S. government will come back and make a statement that, well, you're going to be prosecuted if you release these SARs. And it's just unbelievable that was their response.
And the average person has no recourse. What are you going to do? Say, hey, I'm not going to pay my taxes. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand up. Sure.
Well,
okay.
But try to float a few checks and they catch you in it. You try to get your $40 back. It's not going to happen. But these people can literally, launder trillions of dollars with not much happening whatsoever. And if you get a fine of $23 million, when you're looking at the trillions, that's like not even a 1% fee on any of this. And then again, these big organizations, they turn around and they'll go after the cartel or the terrorist organization that they'll collect that money behind the scenes, no doubt about it. So this is part of the little guy getting screwed by the big guys. And in this case, it's egregious because the big guys, they're working with terrorists and drug cartels and mafias. That's their customer base here.
Well, some things are real simple, okay? What you just talked about, that's not very simple. Hopefully the right people will get those bad guys. And here's something that should be simple, okay? Picking the next judge for the Supreme Court because one of them died. Now, isn't it interesting, Kimberly, and I saw this article where both the Democrats and Republicans, both of them flip-flop when it comes to this, okay? But, isn't it interesting how every once in a while you'll hear the Democrats start talking about, well, the Constitution says, but then, whenever it's people breaking laws or anything like that, forget about laws, forget about the Constitution.
Yeah.
They only throw it out there, when it's to their advantage. And I think now, if I have it right, once again, they're ignoring the Constitution because, and you're going to set me straight, as I understand, the Constitution says that whenever there's a political vacancy in the Supreme Court, the president at the time must appoint a new Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
Isn't that basically the Constitution?
Yeah. Well, that's part of his job title. He absolutely should be doing this. And I'll look at this. I'll play this both ways. I'll straddle it both ways. Okay. The Republicans did hold up Justice Garland for a long time. He never even got to come up. So I understand that was the case, and that they were.
By the way, that's Obama, 2016.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So, but they held him up, and that was kind of their purview on the way they could get around having Merrick Garland actually come before the judiciary in the Senate and get a vote and go to the full Senate. On the flip side to that, what they're trying to do here, the Democrats saying that the Republicans should not appoint here, is the fact that Mitch McConnell was the Senate Majority Leader under the Obama administration. So he didn't have to take it up if he didn't want to take it up. He was the opposition party. Here, the Democrats would like everyone to believe that the Republicans, out of the goodness of their hearts, ought to just do the same thing, neglecting to let you know that if this was Chuck Schumer involved, then we'd be comparing this apples to apples, oranges to oranges. But we're not, because of that one position. And McConnell, that's kind of been his, what he's done this, entire 4 years of the Trump administration, put judicial judges on the bench, get people through the nominating process, and to see that President Trump is going to get a third pick here, and it's just going to depend on which female he's going to choose here. He's going to have a third pick, and if he gets reelected, we're looking at probably another 2 more picks, which is unbelievable and terrifies the Democrats. So that's kind of the gaming going on right now.
Let me give you a quote, okay? Here's the quote, 2016. There's nothing in the Constitution that says the president stops being the president in his last year. That's Ruth Ginsburg, 2016, New York Times interview, in which he called for Garland to receive a confirmation vote in the Senate.
But it would have been a moot point, because and this is the thing, it's like it would have been a moot point because the Republicans were the majority, and they wouldn't have the votes. The Democrats wouldn't have the votes to get him across the finish line. Now, if Biden is elected to be president of the United States, then maybe they want to, think about bringing Merrick Garland back in for whatever jurist decides to, either leave the bench or pass away. That's that's something that they can do. But, to say that the Republicans kind of stonewalled and blocked this, it didn't matter. They were not going to vote for that.
Hold it right there, Kimberly. You're on a roll. Kimberly Dvorak. And the website, thekdreport.com, streaming live on Facebook. We're so busy. Yes. I'm not even going to talk about that picture on the boat. Okay?
Yeah. Those are my golf buddies. My golf buddies. I have to give a shout out to them every now and then.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good.
Yeah.
And I'm imagining that 99% of them are conservatives.
Actually, that group is probably split 60-40.
Really? That's good. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I'm a bipartisan gal.
Okay, so let me ask you, the 40%, that would be the Democrats. Do they cheat on their, whenever,
You know what?
My God.
You know what? This is the thing with golfing. It's called bad golf karma. You don't want the karma or the golf gods to look down on you in a bad way. It comes back to haunt you. So I think we're all pretty honest with those things.
Is it real hard to replace somebody if somebody drops out? Do you have to go through what we're going through now? Or do you have to wait till the end of the year?
Yeah, wait till
the next off season?
Yeah, you never know. Well, yeah, I have to go
Where
through
did he
it.
go? I don't know, but there's a loud splash.
Yeah.
I know, we get way off the subject sometimes here. But,
That's
but
okay.
she's going to be doing probably her own golf show one of these days. And
Let's hope. Wow, that would be great.
Anyway,
that would be great to get away from it.
It is. Yeah, it is amazing, though. I mean, and you can't blame them. The party that's in power wants to, be the one that holds the hammer, so to speak. You know, it's always been that way.
Well, and I think Barack Obama, when he first became president, actually summed it up really well. And when he was dressing down Paul Ryan, when they were going to go over and deal with, putting forth the Obamacare legislation. Elections have consequences. This is one of those consequences. You give this up to the president because this is what the president's job duties are. And on top of that, the Democrats now are trying to cite this rule that's a unwritten rule that the parties do not put through a Supreme Court justice during their final year in the in their term. And you know what? It was Senator Joe Biden who wrote that unwritten rule. So I mean, it all has ironies, and it ends up, this is kind of, I don't know if this is their cosmic karma. I just know that when I play golf, I don't want the bad karma on my side, but it seems like they're getting a little bit of this back in their face, and that's You know, I mean, not that Trump doesn't dish it out, and he does every day, but they just don't like hearing it. And on this case, they are trying to, you know, take, you know, a couple of these issues and try to, you know, translate, like I said before the break, apples to apples, oranges and oranges. And this isn't. It's similar, but it's not quite that way. And, you know, if the Republicans can do this and get a third pick under the Trump administration, someone who will be on the bench for presumably decades, they're going to do it, and they ought to do it.
And we'll see if Schumer comes up with another sign that I think Adam Schiff's writing, you know.
Yeah.
My goodness, that's low. You know, that little phony sign that the death letter that was written.
Yeah.
But it doesn't surprise me at all.
No.
Hey, we're all out of time.
All righty.
Kimberly Dvorak, Dvorak. She's going to be back next Tuesday, I'm quite sure. And it's thekdreport.com. We'll be right back.